There's two things you're doing when you're sitting like that. You're either checking your phone or you're rolling a joint. It's one of the two. Am I right?
You are. It looks like his pants are down, though, so you don't usually roll joints with your pants down. So I'm guessing the number 2. Oh, baby, round 1 of the draft. It's in the books. We got lots to talk about, Paulie Burmeister, especially I don't know what the hell's going on in the Mike Vrabel house, and you just heard that clip with me and Mike Florio. I don't know. I don't know who those two people that were standing behind him that were already weird looking, let alone the guy we spotted on the toilet. Big question is, was he sitting down to take a pee or was he going number 2? I don't know. It's a big question because when I'm at home, you know I like to sit down and take a pee. Paul is anti-sit down.
That's right. Yeah, I forgot about that part of the early part of our relationship here on Unbuttoned. And all that going on behind Mike, maybe it was all to take away from the question, is the 6th best offensive tackle in the draft worthy of a first-round pick? I mean, we're not talking about that.
Yeah, you're right, and that's certainly a good topic of conversation. Hey, we're going to hit it all here on the draft today. We're going to talk about teams that we think knocked it out, that had multiple picks. We're going to rank our top five picks. Paul and I both got 5 ready to go. We'll hit on some of the big players that are still available for round 2. Hey, let's not forget, everyone, really the success rate for players drafted in round 2 and 3 is higher than round 1. And I know that ever since I've been in this business, I usually come away leaving round 1 going, damn, most of my favorite players haven't been picked yet. So we'll see how that goes tonight. That's going to be fun to watch. But we certainly do have a lot to discuss here, Paul, some big-time moves. And, hey, I do a little tidbit. We saw, I think, 2 things that jumped out to me football philosophy-wise last night. You hit on it. One with the right tackle from Georgia. We saw offensive linemen be a priority because, as you and I both know, college football right now is not really into coaching offensive linemen, and we have a lot of freak defensive ends in the NFL right now, so you better have people on the edge that can block them. With guys like Austin Jackson, who I've talked about from USC. He's got all these physical traits to be a franchise guy. Had an underwhelming year last year because he transferred some bone marrow to his sister. So, again, it wasn't a good film, but I know the physical traits are there. Your Isaiah Wilson that you talked about from Georgia, that's a very real topic. And then nickel corners. We saw a run of nickel corners there at the end of the first round where it shows you, I think teams are prioritizing those positions a little more maybe than we've seen in history.
As they should absolutely have to have one. And I don't know the exact number, Chris, but I know it's well past 50% of the snaps on defense that you play with that nickel corner. It's not like it was 7-8 years ago where you get a smaller corner, maybe he's a 4-6 instead of a 4-5. Oh, we'll get him in the middle rounds and stick him there at nickel. You got to have one to play almost every single snap now, and we'll get to those guys here a little bit later. Let's start kind of big picture. You already started us kind of going down that road, but let's take a peek here at all 32 picks, and we're going to get into each one of these highlights and themes. We've got it sorted out in a way that flows pretty well to us, the way we're seeing it, but no surprise, 1, 2, 3, when you talk about Burrow, Young, Okudah, and really the popular positions kind of just like we thought. A little over half of the first-round picks, Chris, either quarterbacks, wide receivers, offensive linemen, or cornerbacks, the traditional variety, or the slot. And we're going to get into that as much as we possibly can here in the next 90 minutes. Maybe we get even a little bit closer to 2 hours. Let's start off with Tua Tagovailoa with Tua at number 5. Okay. Best word to describe, according to you, the Dolphins taking the Alabama quarterback at that spot.
Well, risky. I mean, that would be the best word that would describe it to me. I mean, there's tremendous risk factor here. I don't mean to beat the drum once again here on the Tua conversation. I'd let it be known that,
it's a headline.
I know it's the headline. And, I let it be known that even without the injury history, I don't think he was worth a top 5 pick. But, there is an injury history. It's extensive. And, yes, that scares me. So that'll be something that, I'm going to have to see it to believe it, really, to go down. And if I'm wrong, I'll be the first one to admit it, and we'll go from there. But, also, I just think the other thing that plays into this a little, Paul, too, is we've seen the last few years, if teams like a quarterback, they just go ahead and do it. There's no like, oh, we're going to wait till later in the round or anything like that. Strike early in the round. Know you get your guy and feel good about that. And I think the Dolphins knew they had a guy they really liked. And another aspect of this that I think is very real, Paul, we don't know what's going to happen with college football next year, right? I think it's very much up in the air. I think we have a way better chance of NFL football happening than college football happening. And if there's no college football season and you're a team that needed a quarterback in this draft, but then decided, I'll wait till next year. Well, how's that going to work? I mean, are you going to draft Trevor Lawrence, who hasn't played quarterback in 18 months by the time it comes around for him to be drafted and played in the NFL? So I wonder if that played into some of these organizations thinking about making sure they got the guy they wanted this year in this draft.
And you consider, Chris, how that filters into our world and how we get to see some of these quarterbacks. We're both on schedule to be in South Bend next November when, as of right now, Clemson is supposed to be there. And I've had that one circled, not only for the excitement of the game, but for a chance to see Trevor Lawrence in person. We may not get that chance before next year's draft. So I think you bring up a very good point. And that sliver of quarterback example is just one way to think about what you just brought up there with the topic. What's it going to be like next year?
Yeah, no, it is. It's a fascinating subject. And, hey, the Tua conversation is fascinating in itself. I know the Dolphins love Joe Burrow, but I think Tua was always the second guy on their board. And, they were happy with the medicals, right? The teams that liked Tua, they were okay with the medicals. The teams that were on the fence or didn't like him, they basically failed his medicals. That's usually how it goes. So we'll see, and again, they're not desperate to have to play him right away either. With Brian Fitzpatrick being there and Chan Gailey's got a history with Brian Fitzpatrick, they could manage the year without him, but I doubt that happens. It doesn't happen very much anymore. We say this every year, right? Every year. Carson Wentz, we're going to let him sit for the year behind Sam Bradford. Trade Sam Bradford. Carson Wentz is in. Daniel Jones is going to sit the year behind Eli Manning. Week 3, let's start Daniel Jones. I mean, you can go down the list. It's really, other than Aaron Rodgers back then, he's the last guy that's really been held out for an extensive period of time as one of those, top quarterbacks drafted. So when teams see these guys and fan bases see Herbert and Tua, and they get out there in the preseason and they have a little success, and then the team gets to see them in practice and go, okay, they know how to manage the offense. They just go, okay, what are we wasting time for? Let's just make him a starting quarterback and get on with it. And that's what will happen
right here. And there's a whole lot of unpredictability with any team, any quarterback situation. But when you think about Miami, can't you almost predict they'll be around 500 or maybe a little below in October? Maybe they lose a couple games in a row. Ryan Fitzpatrick in those 2 games, maybe he throws 4 or 5 picks. I mean, at that point, if Tua is healthy, are we really not going to see him? I think we all know the answer to that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, I mean, you're right. There's too much invested. The fan base will be clamoring for it. And, Tua's a household name. I mean, everybody in America has been telling us Tua was the number 1 pick in the draft for the last year and a half. So, the fan that's not in the weeds like you and I and draft and evaluation, all that, they just go, oh, well, they got Tua. He was the quarterback at Alabama. They were amazing. He must be amazing too. This is awesome. I like the Dolphins. Here we go. And that's really what happens in these type of situations.
You sum it up so well. So I've heard a number of people say surprise there at 5. I don't think it was a surprise at all. And maybe it turns out to be a mistake at 5 that they took Tua, but no real surprise he went at 5. No surprise at 6. This quarterback turn we've talked about for the last couple of months, that the Chargers, after all the smoke screen about how much they like Tyrod Taylor, they take Justin Herbert. So almost a day later, question to my mind, not which team is going to win more next year. Which quarterback do you think is walking into a better situation the next 3 years to develop and be the best quarterback he can be when he's still a young quarterback?
Well, I do look at that Los Angeles Chargers Justin Herbert combination and think, first off, the Chargers, Anthony Lynn, they want to play defense, play through their run game a little bit, and kind of control the football game and the flow of the game that way. I mean, Justin Herbert's going to be able to do that this year. He will be. Again, this is a very smart individual. And
do you think he starts right away, Chris?
I do. I think it's going to just come down to they're going to get into training camp and go, wait. Justin Herbert's bigger? Wait, he's faster? He's got a stronger arm? He had the number 1 Wonderlic score out of all the quarterbacks. He's already picked up the offense. And I think they're going to go, we were going to kind of play ball control. Let's not let the quarterback screw the game up type of play anyways. So why not go with the rookie who actually has more talent than the guy that we have as the veteran? So I do. And then you talk about, hey, he's got a good running back. He's got some good receivers and a tight end to play with. And the big thing is the defense. Their defense it was a top 5 defense last year. And now they've added Chris Harris Jr. and Kenneth Murray late in the first round last night. And I just go, watch out. The Chargers are one of those teams that you put a little mark next to go, they could be really a pain in the butt and certainly in playoff contention next year.
But as for my question about which quarterback is in the better position to develop and get better down the road, I agree the Chargers are a better team. But if he does start right away, and I agree that could happen, it's a team that people expect to go 9-7-ish, maybe get to 10 wins, and those expectations are going to be different on him than however Tua's season plays out his rookie year in Miami.
That's very real. I mean, you're right. Joe Burrow and Tua, I don't think any of us are going to be sitting there going, we think they should be a playoff contender. But I'd still, within that, and you're right, the high expectations puts more pressure on the situation. I would still rather be the quarterback with the high expectations with talent around me than the quarterback with lower expectations with, yes, a lesser team around me. And that's why I think there's room to develop and develop fast. And like I said, I don't think they're going to need Justin Herbert to go out there and just score 30 points right away in week 1 with the way they play defense.
Yeah, they made a nice move to get back in later in the first round to get Murray, the linebacker.
Nice.
Out of Oklahoma like that one a whole lot. Speaks to their identity on that side of the ball for sure. So we had 3 quarterbacks go in the top 6, which is a nice story in any draft. Then we get to number 26, the Green Bay Packers trading up to get Jordan Love. And Chris, I got to be honest, I felt like back when you were in college, I was in local news. I was at KWWL in Waterloo, Iowa, and I can picture us down in this little newsroom. And there was one time, there was no story. It was about 5:40, no lead story for the 6 o'clock. And then we get news, comes in everywhere, major car accident about 10 miles, a tragic pileup on the interstate. And our news director was like, now we have a lead. Now, this is a much less tragic situation, but when the Packers traded up to do that, I had this flashback of, now we have a lead for round 1. The Packers making this move that is so easy to stand back and to poke holes in. So I know you don't like it. I don't like it either. I want specifics on why you think this is a questionable move.
Yeah, well, that's a funny story, and I think this is a car crash of a pick. Just to go off of what you're saying. I don't like it. I mean, I don't. First off, let's just talk about the quarterback, Jordan Love. I like him, as you know. I mean, I originally ranked him in front of Tua, but this is a guy that, the more you dug into, he needs a little more time. Everything about his game is inconsistent and raw. And the reason I liked him, and I think I fell in love with him a little too hard at first, is because his good is really good. I mean, he makes some throws during the season where, I wrote in my notes, like, man, that's Aaron Rodgers, what he just did right there. So I can see what Green Bay liked in the talent of Jordan Love. But when we get into the total conversation here about where we are in the NFL right now, 2020, the quarterback situation, and the team that the Green Bay Packers have, I hate it. I hate it for this reason. I mean, we're seeing Drew Brees and Tom Brady and all these quarterbacks play till they're 40 years old and still be able to play at a high level. Aaron Rodgers is still one of the 5 best quarterbacks in football. Is he going to go downhill a little here the next few years? Yes, but I don't think he's going to fall off a cliff. He's still going to be right in that conversation for one of the 5 best quarterbacks in football. So what I just don't understand is I would rather have seen a little bit more of desperation mode. Let's go all in with Aaron Rodgers and bolster our roster instead of going with, man, here's the developmental quarterback who's got a tremendous upside, but the time he might be developed and ready to go, Aaron Rodgers probably will still be playing and still be playing at a high level to where I don't know if Green Bay ever bears the fruits of the talent of a Jordan Love. And then to me, that's a waste of a pick.
And maybe they don't bear the fruits of the talent that's on their roster right now. I think initially, Chris, you and I heard you this morning say I kind of had my feelings hurt. And there's that ex-quarterback in there that you're like, you can put yourself in Aaron Rodgers' shoes and be like, oh my God, did my team really do that? And you're mad for that reason. But as to what you talk about with the team, I took a step back this morning and thought about it and said, okay, your first round pick, no matter the team, no matter your year, in the abstract, what's it for? It's to help your team take that next step. So if you're a rotten team, if this guy can help you win 6 games, you've won. If you're an average team, if he helps you play meaningful games in December, you've won. Where's Green Bay? They're one of the final 4 teams last year. And their main problem was they couldn't stop San Francisco and they couldn't move the ball consistently against San Francisco. This pick doesn't help that one single bit. And then you go even bigger picture. Look at the other 3 teams that were playing on championship weekend. What did San Francisco do? They had just addressed a need on the D-line, which is their identity of the entire team. They got another quarterback for Kyle Shanahan to help them be even tougher to beat, to maybe score a touchdown in the next
another
Super Bowl.
wide receiver. Yep, go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tennessee. Okay, Jack Conklin leads. We need an offensive tackle. As I brought up, maybe the 6th best offensive tackle will help you next year. Maybe he won't. But they clearly have a plan to make a good team even better.
That's right. And then that's what they want to do. Yeah.
The other team, Kansas City. What did they do? They're laughing at everybody. They gave themselves your best running back in the draft out of the backfield to run and to catch. Say what you want about those picks individually. Those other 3 teams that played in championships made a pick that makes them even tougher to beat next season because they're in this little window. And Green Bay didn't do that. They didn't even come close to doing that. And just as a fan, as somebody who wants to watch Aaron Rodgers walk onto the field in January and have a meaningful 3rd and 7 in the second half, that doesn't help that. That doesn't help that situation that we would all like to see. And if you love Green Bay, it doesn't help you get closer to the next level, which for them is the Super Bowl.
Well, exactly right. I mean, this is a team that we're holding to a Super Bowl standard. Paul, outstanding. You made so many great points, and that is the point. And again, where I just get sick of it and I get a little pissed off and it does bother me is, I think Aaron Rodgers, he's the greatest quarterback I've ever seen. When he was in his prime for about an 8-year run, he was the best I have ever seen. And I know not everybody agrees with that, and that's cool. But I don't think anybody could disagree that, he's not one of the most talented quarterbacks you've ever seen play the position. So I guess I'm frustrated in that, Rodgers is always going to get a bad rap. Oh, he only won 1 Super Bowl. Oh, he's only been to 1 Super Bowl. And want to go, well, damn, yeah, that's not his fault. I mean, he needs some help. How many years can he carry the team? How many years can we have a mediocre defense and a lot of receivers who are solid, but nobody's great, but yet we expect the offense and the Green Bay to be in the Super Bowl contention? Why? It's only because of Aaron Rodgers. I mean, his damn back and shoulders must be so tired from carrying the squad. It's unbelievable. But then we get to NFC Championship games where, hey, the team failed them in Seattle. Hey, they lost to Atlanta and San Francisco in the last 2 NFC Championships they've been in. And people are going to go, oh, he didn't come through big in those games. They were so not in the class of the Atlanta Falcons or the San Francisco 49ers as a team, and we're there only because of the greatness of Rodgers, but yet Rodgers is going to get blamed for it. Damn, we can go back and watch the Super Bowl in 2010. Watch how the team failed him on that day. I mean, they dropped 3-4 touchdown passes, and he played an unbelievable game that should have been even more unbelievable, and they should have won by 20 points. But they kind of dropped the ball as a team that day. So I'm just frustrated. As a fan of Aaron Rodgers,
yes,
and as a fan of any great quarterback, and yes, I kind of root for Green Bay because I like Rodgers and want to see him succeed, and I get sick of hearing the hate towards him at times. Yeah, this pick, for lack of a better phrase, just pisses me off.
And we see here exactly what you have tweeted out. That's it pisses you off. And I want to follow up even more to what I heard you say there about. Some people are going to say, well, I mean, maybe Aaron Rodgers is on the decline. And, hey, at some point he's going to have to take a step down and his play is going to fall off. But let's look at the playoff game they won last year at home against Seattle. And unlike San Francisco and unlike Kansas City, they were clearly better than a number of teams they played. They could play pretty well and handle almost everybody. Green Bay needed Aaron Rodgers to play very, very well for them to win in January. Go back to the Seattle game and think about a couple of those pass plays where he picked out the right place to go with it on push routes down the field, and you You couldn't have walked up and handed them off any closer. And in a one-score game, your quarterback is able to make a couple throws like that in January. Give him another one like that. Give him some more receivers. Let us see more of that in January.
I agree. Yeah. I know, Paul. We're seeing a guy like you said, and you're right. It's going to start going downhill, but not so downhill to where you got to replace him in the next 4 to 5 years. I don't think it's going to be that drastic. This is the first year since 2009. I think that I'm going into a season going, Aaron Rodgers isn't the best quarterback in football. Okay, whoa, he fell down to number 4 for me. I would probably list them as far as Mahomes, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Rodgers, and then I would go Lamar Jackson. That would probably be the Chris Sims top 5 if I had to go right now. So, yeah, he's still playing at a high level. And then, we talk about the greatest player in the sport right now in Patrick Mahomes. And this is what drives me crazy a little because I agree Mahomes is the best player in the sport. But damn, does he have a lot of talent around him. I mean, Aaron Rodgers has never had Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Sammy Watkins, McCole Harbin. Never. Again, I don't get it either, Paul. There's other needs on that football team. Not saying they had to go defense, not saying they had to go any specific position, but to go backup quarterback when your team's in the Super Bowl window right now, and you obviously, to your point, need other positions on the team to help the team get over the hump against the elite of the NFL. That's where, I disagree with my man Jeudy, the GM up there in Green Bay on this one.
I've been in the weeds on every single NFL draft since back in 2005, and I can't think of a pick I hate more than this one, and I know you feel the same way. I also always try and remove my feelings, my own GM cap off now, and try and see the positive of it and say, okay, I'm going to step away from what I believe here. What's the good? And I think to be true to ourselves here, Chris, we have to look at today and the weekend. One of the major themes that we talked about with this draft, the depth at wide receiver. And we've also talked about the history at the wide receiver position, how second and third round picks have turned out to be very, very good, like Devontae Adams, Michael Thomas is in New Orleans right now. So let's take a step back and realize that. We could be singing a different tune about Green Bay on Monday with the wide receiver position. There's also only one running back off the board. You don't like him. I like DeAndre Swift. I think a guy like that would be nice in the second round. All the tight ends are still there as well. So
that's right.
Maybe we get to Saturday and Sunday and we're like, okay, I see the plan. Let's see how it plays out in the fall or whenever they end up playing football again. So
I hope you're right.
It's not my number one feeling, as I think we can both tell, but I think we should look at that and consider it too.
And I think that if that's the case and they knock it out of the park tonight, in rounds 2 and 3, and then the rest of the draft on Saturday, trust me, I think we're both pretty admirable men that will go, damn, Green Bay, way to rebound. We don't like that first pick, but, you really addressed all the other needs and got some good players. I think we'll both be the first to say it. But as it stands right now, we're both a little frustrated with what we saw.
Okay, let's be in a good mood again, huh?
Okay, let's go.
So
where do you want to go?
We're doing it let's go back to the top with the quarterbacks before we get into the wide receivers and Joe Burrow. And I was thinking about this last night and this morning, Chris, considering all the things that we wanted to get into. Because he was such a slam dunk pick at number 1, and there was no mystery around it. He was going to be the top guy. We both like him a whole lot as a prospect. We didn't spend that much time around him or on him. So I want to put a button on him just with one thought. Your first thought about him when you think about Joe Burrow as it relates to how he might do here in year 1.
I honestly, I think about, the words that come to my head are baller, Peyton Manning. I mean, that's the kind of the things I think about. And you're right, Paul. He's like the least talked about number 1 pick I can ever remember because it was such a slam dunk sure thing that it was almost just like, let's move on and analyze other people. We know he's a for sure thing, no problem. But how could you not be amazed by just some of the highlights you saw last night watching the draft? It wasn't like he was sitting there in a clean pocket every play and guys were just running wide open. I mean, he's dodging people in the pocket and throwing balls 30 yards off balance and doing unbelievable things, unbelievable accuracy down the field. And just, there's nothing where you can look at the person and go, I don't like it. The person's great, the way he handles himself. He's got a little edge and swagger to him, let alone the polish. And you could tell he's very smart and competitive and just unflappable. So I mean, yeah, I love the kid. That's why he was the #1 quarterback. You know, when you come away and go, man, the only thing I could maybe not like about him is he's not like the best deep ball thrower. Okay, that's, minute. He's still a really good damn one, but just not Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers as far as that's concerned.
And there's a real big part of his story, Chris, that wasn't really a part of his evaluation when you and I did touch about it, that I think is a really likable part. And I don't know how much it's going to have to do with how well he plays or doesn't play in Cincinnati the next 10 years. But when I was thinking about him, his lead up to this point is so different than what we've seen here in the recent years. He redshirted. First of all, how often do we see a quarterback taken this high who redshirted? It doesn't happen very often anymore.
No,
he didn't play
not.
for 3 years. Didn't play for 3 years. So, he had this time where he had to go back to his dorm and be like, am I ever going to play? Am I ever going to be a starting college quarterback? He had to live through that and have the mental toughness and confidence to get by that. Then he had to transfer. And then what I really like, and again, it's something that's kind of rare right now, he didn't make a start until he was an upperclassman. I mean, he was a man in his 20s before he got onto the college football field as a starter. And he got that 1 year as a starter and did fine and had a chance to take a step back and be like, okay, what can I be better at? I've had 4 years of college football, 1 year as a starter. It's a really super rare thing now to step into a 5th year with only 1 year as a starter and be like, I know what I need to work on. I'm a grown-up, confident man. I saw my mistakes and I can get better at them. And he just took that situation and ran with it better than anybody we've seen here in recent years.
Yeah, no, it's the most unbelievable college season I've ever seen at a quarterback. And, again, it's not like they were playing a cupcake, schedule. Mm-hmm. They're playing the best kids and teams in college football. And, as you said, you hit all the great points. But I'm big into, what you make happen when things aren't there. And hey, listen, when it is there, he's going to make it happen. I can promise you that. When it's not there, he's going to make it happen most of the time too. And that to me is the greatest trait he brings, let alone all the things you mentioned. And yeah, they're just I hate to say this phrase because it's like annoying and people say it on TV, but there's an it factor with this kid that I see. He just brings a lot to the table in a lot of different areas that'll make your team much better when he walks into the locker room.
Yeah, it factor with Joe Burrow to me means a maturity, a mental toughness he had to have, and a confidence that he had to have to move from year one as a starter to year two with the kind of efficiency that he had. Wide receivers, we knew this was going to be a big part of round one. We had to wait until 12 to see one, Ruggs to the Raiders. But then in between 12 and 25, I believe 6 went off the board. So I want to touch on each one. I've got a question about each one of these guys. And we'll work it in chronological order. Number 12, Henry Ruggs to the Raiders, John Gruden and Mike Mayock. When they could have had any wide receiver they wanted, they could have had anyone they wanted. Why do you think they went with him?
Well, I thought they would go Jerry Jeudy, right? I won't lie, because I thought Gruden will go with like somebody that reminded him of Jerry Rice. My knowledge of Gruden, my experience with him is that he's obsessed with Jerry Rice, and we used to watch tapes of him all the time. So I thought that might be the guy. But I think ultimately what he took about Ruggs is it's a weapon, and it's straight speed. And I think, again, that's sexy when you just evaluate the player and you like that and you look at all the different things you can do with a guy like Ruggs. But I think specifically this is why I like it for the Raiders, Paul. They want to ground and pound. They want to run the ball. That's what they do first. They have one of the best O-lines in football, and they have Josh Jacobs, who's emerging as one of the best running backs in football. They got very good tight end play. They got, some other receivers to throw a lot of short and intermediate passes to. Derek Carr is very accurate in doing that. And now you got a guy that's going to scare the shit out of everybody deep. And to me, the one thing I always go back to, I'm big into great offenses make you defend the whole field. And with that formula right there, he's going to put pressure on defenses. Oh, yeah, we're smashing you with Josh Jacobs. Oh, you want to bring that safety down in the box? Oh, yeah, come on, come down a little closer. Zoom, there goes Henry Ruggs down for a 70-yard touchdown. So from that standpoint, I like that. And Gruden is very creative and will know how to get Henry Ruggs the ball in a lot of different ways.
You're talking about what he can do vertically mostly, and with that speed in 4-2 and the hands better than I think a lot of people thought when they went to evaluate him. That's
Right.
number one. But think about covering horizontally, what he'll do to that front seven with the way they can manufacture touches with the fly sweeps and reverses and the quick screens. So there's a couple of different ways they can use him. If he's all that we think he can be, that's a heck of a weapon there for the Raiders at number 12. Jerry Jeudy, 15 to the Broncos. I know you didn't love him as one of your top 5, but do you like the fit with what they're building there with the Broncos?
I really do like the fit. And, yeah, this is why I hate the draft process. I like Jerry Jeudy. You're right. I didn't think he was one of the 5 best receivers. I knew all along he was going in the top 20 picks of the draft. That wasn't the case. I'm not stupid. I mean, I knew there was a lot of teams in football that really liked him. I just didn't see it the same way as all of them. So, but refined, ready to go, incredible route runner. And the big thing is, and we talked about this with the wide receiver position, there was something for everyone in this draft. You need speed, you need a jitterbug, you need a size receiver, you need a slot good route runner. There's 2 or 3 of each to be had for every team and what suits your needs. And I think Jerry Jeudy does suit some needs there for the Denver Broncos. He's got some Emmanuel Sanders type qualities to him. So, you just think about Drew Lock, Melvin Gordon, Noah Fant, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy. Holy crap. Sign me up. Then, there's another team where I just go, watch out. Denver's defense was good already. And now you got this emerging offensive firepower. That's going to be scary. And that's an offense, again, that's got a little bit of everything. And you're going to have to defend the whole field with this team because of the variety of talent they have at each position.
2 picks later at 17 for the Cowboys. Why do you think CeeDee Lamb was still available?
I wish I knew the answer to that. I could tell you this. When I knew when he was available and I went, oh, Dallas is going to pick, I was like, there's just absolutely no way that Jerry Jones is going to pass CeeDee Lamb. First off, if there's a player from Arkansas, Oklahoma, or Texas on the board that's even worthy of being picked at that position, Jerry's going to pick him. And he understands that, 1, because I think he's got a little affection for those schools, but 2, that's where they play. They're close to that area. That brings more fans into Dallas. Oh, hey, I'm an Oklahoma fan. Man, my favorite player at Oklahoma the last few years is on the Cowboys. Man, I wasn't a Cowboys fan, but I am now. Let's go see our old college best player or whatever. So there's some thought there. I don't know why CeeDee Lamb was still on the board, though, Paul. I don't. Really, to me, he was the slam dunk of the draft at the wide receiver position. And, again, I mean, him paired with Amari Cooper in that run game, Dak Prescott's going to be really happy. I mean, CeeDee Lamb is size, speed, route running, and not even close the best wide receiver with the ball in his hands in the whole draft. I mean, not even close to anybody else. And I think he's in a great spot with a lot of good players around him to really let him flourish and be a star.
Eagles at 21, Chris. We all knew they wanted a wide receiver. Okay, they got one. And I know you didn't love the pick at the time, and I question it too. Jalen Reagor, TCU, goes at 21. There had to be a discussion between Reagor and Jefferson from LSU, who went later. We'll talk about him in a moment. I'm not asking you if you agree with the pick, because I know you don't. Can you see why the Eagles chose Reagor? Can you make sense of it, why they made that decision?
I mean, I can make sense of it. I mean, I think he's a guy that's, they look at as somebody who can separate down the field and win with just straight blazing speed. So do that little aspect like Deshaun Jackson. And then I think they also look at it to go, hey, he's a guy we could throw a wide receiver screen to or a slant, and he can make something happen with the ball in his hands after the catch. But, yes, I just don't know if he was worthy of that pick to me. I don't. I think there's just a few too many holes in his football game. He's a good player. But, yeah, I think they overdrafted him. I understand in theory what they're trying to accomplish there, but I just don't think he's in the same class as Justin Jefferson or Brandon Aiyuk. Brandon Ayuk's the same guy to me, except just a better version. So, yeah, that's why I guess I just didn't love the pick overall, Paul.
Okay, so then next, Justin Jefferson is there for the Vikings at 22. I'm sure Rick Spielman was elated. If you're Kirk Cousins and you basically are just a quarterback who's part of a trade, Stefon Diggs for Justin Jefferson, what do you think of that swap?
They got a chance to have a guy that could be better than Stefon Diggs a year or two from now. I mean, really, I love Justin Jefferson. To me, he was the better version of Jerry Jeudy. Every bit as good as a route. Not going to say every bit as good a route runner, maybe slightly less the route runner, but more physical, rips the ball out of the air. Again, yak after the catch, lots of big plays with the ball in his hands, 50-50 balls. I mean, to me, this is one of the steals of the draft. I mean, the fact that he was sitting there, Paul, the one thing I found out, because usually what happens to me is I release my rankings and positions, and I have teams and players and, coaches and front office who see it and follow me, and, they want to talk about it a little. Justin Jefferson, from just about, almost everybody I know in the NFL, and that's not 32 teams, all of them viewed him as like the top 2 or top 3 receivers in the draft. And that to me was just amazing that he was still on the board, and the Minnesota Vikings got a steal with that one.
And he doesn't even have to be the number 1 option there if you consider Thielen that for Kirk Cousins.
No, exactly right. And, he can kind of fill 2 holes in one, really. I mean, okay, yeah, he can play slot like we talked about, but if they want to run the ball and play matchup football on the outside with Thielen and Jefferson, his size and ability to run routes and everything, he's going to be able to get open in that fashion too, let alone he's an all-around good football player. They want to run the ball. They want to throw the ball over the middle of the field. And Jefferson will run block. He'll go over the middle of the field and be fearless. He's got great understandings of coverages and where to sit down. He's very quarterback friendly that way, let alone he plays much bigger than his size is as is. So, yeah, you know me, man. I'm on the Justin Jefferson fan club big time.
Bringing us to the last wide receiver taken there in round 1, Chris, and that's Brandon Aiyuk out of Arizona State to San Francisco. I went back to my notes because I wanted to make sure I remembered it the right way, but you and I, maybe a month ago, spent about an hour and a half talking about the top 5 wide receivers. And I went back with all the guys I talked to, the evaluators and analysts and GMs, and I was correct in remembering none of them had him in their top 3 or 4. But every single one of them, before I moved them on to tight ends or quarterbacks, they said, wait. We got to talk about the Arizona State guy. So for some reason, he wasn't seen as a top half of the first-round pick, but everybody I talked to wanted to add on how much they really liked him. What does he bring to Kyle Shanahan specifically?
I mean, everything. I mean, I think you could argue that this guy's every bit as good a route runner as Jerry Jeudy. He's one of the best route runners in it. He's very explosive. He is, with the ball in his hands or not, without the ball in his hands. His route, his ability to start, stop, re-accelerate, do double moves, do intricate route running, I think is all so smooth and effortless. Let alone, again, he's another guy, like we talked about with some of these guys already, that's special with the ball in his hands. So I think Kyle Shanahan, first off, who I think is one of the best wide receiver evaluators in the NFL. This is when Kyle says something, about receivers, I listen and I perk up because he looks at it in depth and really has some great nuanced things that he looks for at the position that I don't think a lot of people have an eye to see. And he's taught me a lot, and I'm not going to even share them with you because I don't want to give Kyle secrets, really, okay? But yeah. I knew Kyle was hot on Brandon Aiyuk. I knew he was. I kind of left him off of my mock draft a little bit because I didn't want to screw my friend over. But he thinks he can be Isaac Bruce. And, to your point, Paul, you're right. I think a lot of teams really liked Aiyuk, and I think here in the last, week to 5 days, I think he probably cracked into a lot of teams' top 3 receivers, maybe even top 2 in a lot of ways. And I think Shanahan made a real bold move. Hey, they lost Emmanuel Sanders. The Dante Pettis experiment they drafted a few years ago, that hasn't gone great. They only got Deebo Samuel and Kendrick Bourne right now. So I think he knew how desperate they were to have that position, and he had a guy he liked at the board there, and they made a trade and got him, which is good by them.
I think you have to take one layer back view as well and throw in, just look at pass catchers and throw in Kittle there. So you have Kittle, you have Samuel, and now you have Aiyuk. And what I've been thinking about this, he's so much different. He's a much different kind of pass catcher and a much different headache on a defense than Kittle is, and also what Samuel is too.
Yes, he is. Well, this is the guy I think that, you'll never be able to peg him for what he's doing on the offense because he can do everything so well. So you go, with like Ruggs, we just talked about Ruggs. When Ruggs is in the game, everyone's going to go, they're going to try to go deep. When Aiyuk's in the game, you're going to go, man, I don't know what they're going to do with this kid. Shanahan's really creative with like the routes he gives his receivers, so this guy can run all the intermediate to lower, yardage type routes, but yet still has the speed to scare the death out of you and run a bomb over the top, a post route, whatever it may be. And then he's got tremendous shake and body control and acceleration when he does catch wide receiver screens. And all those things are paramount for the Shanahan offense. And let's not forget, Shanahan, he likes to live in, base personnel, 2 backs, 1 tight end, 2 receivers. So to have 2 really good ones to go along with what you said, the tight end and the running attack, like, holy shit, San Francisco, you're going to be hard to defend.
Yeah, they were tough to defend last year, and now they make a pick that makes them appear to be even tougher to defend this coming season. 6 receivers in round 1, also 6 offensive tackles in round 1. No real surprise. Most of us saw it playing out that way. The order was the big question. There was a wide range of views out there about who was the best offensive tackle, who belonged 1 through 5. Your top 4 were the top 4 to go, not in the exact 1, 2, 3, 4 order, but your top 4 were in some fashion the top 4 to come off the board. What did you think of Thomas being the first one to the Giants at 4?
Well, I got no problem with that. As I've said on the podcast, the top 3 tackles to me stood alone. And yes, I ranked them Wills Jr., Becton, then Thomas. But I did say on my podcast that, all 3 of these guys are phenomenal. They are. They're all franchise left tackle types. You couldn't go wrong with any of the 3. So, yeah, the Giants, I thought they might go Wills Jr., but I certainly understand it. This guy's big, physical, got unbelievable arm length. I really, again, I think all 3 of these guys have like Hall of Fame type potential when I talk about the top 3 tackles off the draft. And I know people and fans, like I get friends that text me when the Giants make that pick, like, damn, couldn't we got a tackle later on in the round? Couldn't we just trade down? I hate taking a tackle with number 4. Okay, well, if you went down too far, you might have not got one of the top 3, and that would have been scary. Tristan Wirfs, yes, he went to Tampa at 14. Tristan Wirfs has very slow feet and would scare the death of me at pass protection, at tackle. I think he's more of a guard. We'll see how that plays out. They drafted him as a tackle, so that's what they're going with. But the other 3 guys, I think for sure, are franchise left tackles, dominant, going to be your starters for 8 to 10 years. And when you take those 3 teams into account, I mean, Giants fans, if you want Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley to be good, they need help. They need somebody to block. Cleveland, if you want Baker Mayfield and Nick Chubb and Odell Beckham Jr. to be this awesome trio, Baker Mayfield needs time. All right, so they did that. That was smart. And then the same thing goes with Mekhi Becton and the New York Jets. You want Sam Darnold and Le'Veon Bell to start balling out? Well, damn, they need help. They can't just make stuff happen by themselves all the time. And as we've discussed so many times, there's so many freaky defensive ends in the NFL right now that come in so many different shapes, sizes, speeds, power ranks, everything, that you got to have a big-time tackle. And those 3, to me, are special.
Compared to what they could have had with these picks, which New York tackle selection do you like the best? Thomas at 4 to the Giants or Becton at 11 to the Jets?
Well, I think I picked Becton to go to the Jets
yes, you did.
in the mock draft because I thought he would fall. I did. I thought the drug test would scare teams just a little bit to where he fell a few spots. I like Wills the best. I mean, but you're saying, wait, out of the New York guys, I like Becton the best. Yeah. I like Becton the best. Sorry. Yeah, Becton to me as long as he keeps his weight under control, is Jason Peters, is like, is Orlando Pace. I think he's that type of guy as long as he doesn't, have a bad offseason and eat himself out of the league.
Right. And I asked this question at the top of the show. I'm going to actually ask it now and allow you to answer it. The 7th offensive lineman, 6th tackle, Wilson going 29 to Tennessee. I know it fits a need. Was he a reach at that spot?
A little bit, but I don't get mad to what you said at the top, which I think was the right thing. When a team has a plan and they know and they're sold on a style in which they want to play football, and Vrabel wants to be big and physical and overpower you, and their offensive line was the reason they got to the Final Four last year. So I think they recognize that. And Wilson, yes, does he have some things to clean up? Yeah. Is he one of the top 32 players in the draft? No, he's not. But again, it's such a premium position. Left tackle, right tackle, that shit's over. Like, it doesn't matter anymore. Khalil Mack goes on both sides. Von Miller goes on both sides. So you got to have good ones either way. And the Titans are building a successful team through that run game, play action pass. Vrabel's going to coach up the defense. And I'm not mad at them for the pick, even though I do think it's a little bit of a reach.
Look at what they learned in the second half of last year. That Ryan Tannehill, number one, is probably much better than they even hoped he would be. Derrick Henry, they knew he was really good. Probably even better than they thought based off of what he did last November, December, and January too. And they lost their best tackle. So I'm just putting an exclamation point on top of what we've been talking about. They have an identity, and they made a pick to make the best players on their team even better. So we'll see if Wilson can play, but it makes a lot of sense that they would take him there. Okay, teams with multiple picks is the next section we have. Let's start with Miami. Let's start with the Dolphins. We talked about Tua, but they had the best and the most picks in the first round in the entire draft with 14. The Vikings are now tied with 14. But Miami now has Tua Tagovailoa. They have Austin Jackson at tackle, and they have the Auburn corner, which is probably the safest way of describing that player they have. So with the 3 that they got out of their trio of first-round picks, what's a letter grade you would give to the Dolphins after those 3?
Oh, I would probably give them a B, something like that. Just a solid B, not a B plus, not a B minus. 2 reasons here.
I thought you might dip into the C's there with Tua.
I'm not, because again, I still think these are good football players. I think the thing I look at, is the risk factor. Again, we talked about Tua. Sure, I know I didn't love him, but he certainly was a first-round quarterback and all of that. And if they like him, just like we talked about with the Tennessee Titans, I got no problem with you taking the guy you like and think that he's going to be the franchise quarterback. So, I'm not going to dock them too many points for that. Then, Austin Jackson, again, has got tremendous ability. He was one of those films where you just kept going, man, why is he missing that block, man? What is going on? Like, because you'd see power. You'd see unbelievable foot quickness. You'd see unbelievable handwork and ability to stun pass rushers and do all that. But then you'd see a handful of plays every game where you'd go, damn, that guy just ran around him. Damn, that guy just pushed him back into the quarterback. Damn, he just missed the block in the run game. Now, I think Miami did their homework here and knows this guy has all the physical traits to be a top franchise left tackle, but he did. He had the bone marrow transplant. And I'm sure they have good information to think that Austin Jackson wasn't at his best physically last year. And that this second year away from that surgery, he'll be a different person and a different man altogether. So I'm playing that angle. Like I said, so the first 2 picks are risky to me is all I'm saying. And then pick number 3, are there some corners that I like more on the board? Yes, but I think they were specifically going to a nickel corner, maybe a guy who could play safety. This Auburn kid where, I'm afraid to say his name as well. I think he does have some safety qualities. One of the things I wrote in my evaluation is I'm not so sure he might not be a better safety when all said and done because he's a very aggressive tackler. He really comes down and attacks people that way. But nonetheless, it's Brian Flores. And to what you said once again with the Tennessee Titans, They have a plan. They do. And he's big into, I want my secondary to be New England-like. I came from New England. I know how to win games that way. And now he has two unbelievable corners on the outside and this kid on the inside to where you go, damn, this is one of the best corner groups in all of football right now, and they haven't even took the field yet.
And if he ends up being a safety, like you mentioned, I kind of look at it like you just talked about with the left tackle, right tackle. It's not a failure if he ends up being a better safety. With the way the game is played now, I mean, in a lot of ways, the safety is more valuable with a number of things that Flores might ask him to do. So if it plays out that way, that would be
hey, Charles Woodson, I think we could sit here and go, Charles Woodson ended up being a better safety than he was corner. And he's still, a Hall of Fame player. So, you're exactly right. I got no issue if it ends up not working at nickel and he ends up at safety. I think he could be very successful there.
5 other teams had 2 first-round picks there, Chris. We've been talking about Jacksonville, Las Vegas Raiders, Los Angeles Chargers, the Niners, and the Vikings. I'd like for each one of us, and you can go first, pick out one of those teams, one of those 5 teams that also had multiple picks that you liked the best and thought did the best work, and tell me why.
Damn, this is really tough because I think 3 of them are really special. Like, I sit here and just go Chargers, 49ers, and Jaguars. Like, I really like all 3 of those. So this is nitpicky crap here. I mean, I was like, I've switched my answer like 3 times since we started the podcast. But I think I'm going to go with the Jaguars. I am. I just look at what they built. I know. I love my man Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. They made some moves. I'm not as high on Aiyuk as my buddy Kyle Shanahan is, all right? So that's probably why I give the Jags the edge. And I like Kenneth Murray and Herbert too. So this is what makes it tough. But C.J. Henderson was the most talented corner in the draft. Jacksonville had a desperate need at that position. This guy has Jalen Ramsey-ish type talent. That's what this kid can be special. He's a lockdown island corner, tremendous speed, tremendous ability to stick his foot in the ground and change direction and accelerate and break on the ball. So I love that. And then, maybe my favorite man crush of the draft is K'Lavon Chaisson. Really, I just look at him and I think he's Von Miller. He's Dee Ford. He's Derek Thomas. He's that type of player to me.
20.
I know. And now you think about, their front 7 with Miles Jack, Joe Schobert, Josh Allen, Taven Bryan, and now K'Lavon Chaisson, the freak coming off the edge, let alone, Henderson at corner. I just think of that defense and I go, Saxonville 2.0 is here. They're back. And I'm in love with those 2 prospects, and that's why I go with Jacksonville.
You had a lot of good options there. That's not the one I thought you were going to go with, as I was trying to pick out one that maybe Chris – I had you down for San Francisco. I had that one scratched off. I had that one scratched off my list. I'm going to go with the Vikings with getting Justin Jefferson and also Jeff Gladney for a part of the game that I love that's changed right now is so much is based off of what's happening in the slot. And you have Justin Jefferson, who I've said the last month has just worn people out in the SEC. A lot of good corners at the slot. And I think that makes Kirk Cousins even better to have him right there. And Jeff Gladney, for a lot of reasons, wasn't seen as a high first-round pick to play on the outside, to go one-on-one against a team's best receiver. But I had a number of people tell me he's going to be really good in the slot. He's really tough.
That's what it is. Yes.
He's got great instincts in there. And so much of the passing game, both sides of the ball, is about what kind of production do you get from the slot and how well can you defend it? And those were big needs for Rick Spielman. I think he got 2 good players there. And also, by trading back, he got a 4th and a 5th round pick. So 14 total picks for the Vikings now, more than any other team in the NFC. And for a playoff team that won a game, they came out of free agency with a lot more holes than you would expect on a roster of a team that won in January. So for the total package there, I really like what the Vikings did.
Yeah, agreed. They addressed 2 big-time needs for their football team. And again, Mike Zimmer is one of those guys where, hey, did I like Kristian Fulton from LSU better than Gladney? Yeah, I did. But Mike Zimmer is one of those guys, when he picks a corner, my ears perk up because I just go, he knows corners. This is one of the masters of corner evaluation in the history of the NFL. So, yes, I like Gladney. I didn't really think he would be to maybe pick 40, pick 42. But regardless, there is great value. And, again, like we talked about at the start of this pod, I think there was a value that we saw here put on these slot corners because of the importance to what you alluded with the slot receivers in the NFL right now.
Yep, very difficult position to play with a number of two-way goes and running backs, receivers, tight ends that you get in there. Before we move on to our top 5 favorite picks, and we're each going to get 5 there, the Raiders, they had multiple picks. We talked about Ruggs, the wide receiver, and the speed and the way they can manufacture touches. What about the corner, Arnette, out of Ohio State? Outside of Love, the quarterback who went to the Packers, a lot of people thought that was the biggest reach in round 1. I want to get your thoughts on that one.
Well, I would agree with a lot of people on that one. This is another guy where, again, like the player, was certainly worthy of to me, a top 50 pick. But at number 19, no. All right, I don't. First off, again, all right, so on film, there's things to really like about the kid. He is really aggressive and quick at the line of scrimmage. His ability to, if he's playing off coverage and the guy runs a slant route, his ability to accelerate and make a play on the ball is very special. From that standpoint right there, those two things, he is very good at. Now, the speed is bothering to me, Paul. When you run 4.57 at corner, that bothers me, and it showed on film. It was one of my biggest things I wrote down. It scares me because if he gets beat off the line of scrimmage, he's in deep crap. And I think that's what bothered me. Again, and people go, well, okay, we want him to work the slot. I understand that. But Tyreek Hill's going to be in the slot sometimes. And it's going to be big trouble, little China, when that happens, okay? That's where it bothers me a little bit. And again, the draft is about also knowing the value of your board and where guys are going to go on other people's boards and everything like that. And to me, yes, this was a severe overreach. I wonder if the Raiders were trying to trade down here at this point because, again, I think you probably could have got this guy in the mid-30s, something like that. So that's where I just don't quite understand it. And, again, 4.57 at corner is the concerning number to me. It's like, oh, we drafted a nose tackle. How much does he weigh? 265 pounds. What? Oh, yes, that's concerning. So those are one of those numbers that, yeah, I do correlate, especially when I don't see on film a difference in speed. Okay, maybe he's not a 4.57, maybe he's a 4.54 on film. He's a little faster than his 40 time, but it's not much. And yes, it's Mike Mayock has done so great building the Raiders. I love so many things he has done, but his first picks of the last 2 drafts to me are they're troubling. They're head scratching. It's like a little bit of I'm smarter than everybody else and I found somebody that nobody else found. And I don't get that. Everything else, I've loved it. I just didn't like that pick last night.
But his first pick last night was Henry
my
Ruggs,
second pick. Yeah, sorry. You're right. Ruggs, I liked Ruggs. Sorry, I misspoke there. Yes.
There you go. Okay, next section here of our post-round 1 reaction. Top 5 favorite picks. No rules here. We're going to go in order. You get 1, I get 1. If your number 1 pick is my number 5 pick, that's okay. We can explain. I'm not including quarterbacks, but you can.
Me neither.
If you would like.
No.
Okay, good.
I didn't either. I'm staying. I mean, come on. I mean, we talk about quarterbacks. That's all we freaking do. Right? So I'm glad you're doing that. Way to go, man.
Excellent. Yeah. I took the liberty of just scratching that off and made that a rule for myself. So now we make it a rule for the duo here. Okay, number 1 favorite pick in the draft. Who you got?
It's tough, but I think I'm going to go CeeDee Lamb to the Dallas Cowboys. That would be my number 1 pick. The fact that he was sitting there on the board at 17, and I think it's just such a special, dynamic player who we've seen perform at such a high level for 3 years in a row against no matter who the competition is. His freshman year against Georgia, the next year in the Final Four, this past year what we saw him do against LSU. I just think this is a phenomenal talent, a can't-miss prospect. I really love the player, and Dallas got a steal. Dallas, Jerry Jones, I just read a quote. I mean, he was the number 6 player on their board. So, I mean, Jerry's really old, but he might have done what the hell are they called? A somersault? Not a
backflip?
A summer, or the cartwheel, whatever the hell they're called. He did something like that when he was like, what? CeeDee Lamb's on the board at 17? I'll take it. Sold.
He might have if he wasn't so comfortable on that white leather couch in his home theater
Beautiful
there.
couch. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
He didn't want to remove himself from there. Okay, my number one favorite pick, I'm going to go all the way down bottom of the first or near the bottom. The Baltimore Ravens getting Patrick Queen, inside linebacker from LSU. And here's the reason why. I remember very well sitting down to watch a national championship game. And like you, I'm there mainly to watch the quarterback and maybe also to watch the receivers. And there was a linebacker for LSU that kept showing up with the speed from sideline to sideline and then striking with some anger when he was getting to the ball carrier. About second quarter, I'm like, who is this guy? And I wish I would have said it at the time, Chris. I didn't say, you know what, inside linebacker is a kind of pick that goes later in the first round. I bet the Ravens end up with this guy. I wish I would have said that, but I didn't. And it's just perfect that the Ravens end up with that kind of difference maker, that kind of talent there at the bottom of round one. So that's my first guy.
That's all. I mean, he's a Raven. I mean, it fits, right? It just seems like the attitude, the ferociousness in which he plays. They got all these big people in front of him, and now he can just go attack the ball. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I'm with you. It didn't make my top 5, but it was on my next group down.
Honorable mention.
I'm a big fan. Honorable mention. My number 2, I'm going K'Lavon Chaisson with the Jacksonville Jaguars at 20. I thought K'Lavon Chaisson was right on the border of being one of the 10 best players in the draft. So I love the player. He's 20 years old. He's only going to get stronger and faster. I think he's the most natural pass rusher in the draft. I mean, I know Chase Young is the most talented, but I think when it comes to bend, spin moves, variety of moves, and just built to be a pass rusher, K'Lavon Chaisson is that, let alone it's the perfect scheme match. I mean, again, Jacksonville runs the Seattle defensive scheme, right? Seattle won Super Bowls with great pass rushers. Jacksonville was good a few years ago with great pass rushers. 49ers, same scheme, great pass rushers. So it just makes Los Angeles Chargers, great pass rushers, same scheme. So from that standpoint, I just think it's a killer combination.
My second favorite pick, Jerry Jeudy, wide receiver, going to the Broncos. And it's not just about the player. I always like to remind myself, every pick in the first round doesn't live in a bubble. Think about it in a chunk. Take a step back and look at what that GM has done recently in the offseason, the last 2 drafts. You go back 2 years ago, Chris, the Denver Broncos didn't have Drew Lock. They didn't have Melvin Gordon. They didn't have Phillip Lindsay. They didn't have Noah Fant, Cortland Sutton, or Jerry Jeudy. So in 2 years, they've kind of put together this very nice, promising nucleus of offensive skill players. Boy, Drew Lock did a nice job last December when he got to be the starting quarterback. They won 4 or 5 games. So I like what they're doing there with that little group inside of that building. And I also like what they're chasing. They're chasing the Chiefs. They didn't score a touchdown against them last December. And by adding a very good receiver, they give themselves a better chance to compete with what they're chasing there in their own division.
No doubt. Listen, it's easy to fall in love with what that group is right there. You're right. I mean, it's about what their offense is now in totality that is very special. And I like that too, Paul. I mean, I really do. I guess what I want to say a little bit just off of what you said is, people bag on John Elway, the GM, sometimes, and I don't like it, nor do I get it. I don't get it. Is there any other GMs that have been to 2 Super Bowls outside of New England in the last decade other than John Schneider? No. Been to a few AFC championship games to go along with that. The Denver Broncos have been a very, very good football team throughout John Elway's tenure. I know the last 2 years haven't been great, but damn. I mean, you can't be great for like 10 years straight. At some point, you got to take a step back and rebuild the team. And I think he's done that in a hurry. Between the players you mentioned, A.J. Bouye, making a trade for him this offseason, Jarrell Casey, Bradley Chubb in the draft 2 years ago, who didn't even play last year. So Denver is one of those teams that's on the rise, and I'd say watch out for.
And just consider this too, Chris, before we move on to number 3. Think about how much better the players inside that building would be if they had his motivation, that picture of you succeeding as a Denver Bronco that you stole and you now
Yeah,
have in the
right.
basement?
You're funny. You're a funny guy.
That's worth a winner too, maybe.
Maybe. I doubt it. Maybe they could have used it as a dartboard or something to, like, beat the shit out of, something like that.
Even better. Okay,
My
your
number
third
3,
favorite pick.
I'm going to go Isaiah Simmons to the Cardinals at number 8. Again, I hate the draft sometimes because everybody gets over analytical. Hey, sometimes let's just take the guy that's really big and fast and makes a lot of plays on the football field and causes disruption and has all the physical tools, and we see it on film and have the evidence to know when you pick a position for him, he's going to be able to do it. And that, to me, I just was wondering if anybody was going to pick Isaiah Simmons, my top linebacker, in the top 10. I thought everybody might get a little scared. Oh, I don't know what position to play him at. Hey, doesn't matter. Get him close to the line of scrimmage at the second level. Let him go find the ball. He can do it all. This is not like some, athletic, soft type player. There's physicality there. There's great instincts. And there's a lot of versatility in what he can do at that second level for your defense. So I really love that pick.
Another player you like brings me to my third favorite, Javon Kinlaw, going to the San Francisco 49ers. And I'm basing a lot of it on listening to you and how much you liked him and almost had him as the number 1 guy at that position. And it goes back to this theme that you and I have been talking about and patting people on the back for doing it this way. San Francisco became San Francisco the last year and a half because of their defensive line. And maybe he's not as good as DeForest Buckner. Maybe he's a shadow of that. But at least they recognize what made them special, and they went and got somebody really, really good at that spot. And I just had a quiet little applause there on my couch for the teams that did that last night.
Yeah. Those are big time moves. I mean, for them to have the vision of trading DeForest Buckner away, and like you're saying, getting basically another DeForest Buckner at that pick, with, yes, on a part of their team that was a truly elite unit across the board in the NFL. Yeah, and I'll second you with this, Paul. I think Kinlaw is better than DeForest Buckner was coming out of Oregon.
Wow.
I do. Yeah, I mean, this is an ass kicker. So my buddy Kyle Shanahan, he was sitting there at 14, and I bet you he was having a tough time because I know my buddy likes CeeDee Lamb too. And he had CeeDee Lamb and Javon Kinlaw on the board, and he was probably going, damn, what the hell do I do? But Kinlaw, just too big, physical, powerful to pass up. So I like that one by you. I'm all with you. Hey, my number 4, I'm going to Justin Jefferson, somebody you hit on. But just to get him, was my second favorite receiver in the draft. I think he is like a can't-miss prospect. Even if he fails, he's going to be like 85 receptions a year. But I think he's going to be a guy that can get 100, 105, 110, and make more plays with the ball in his hands than a guy like Michael Thomas can. And, most people think Mike Thomas is the best receiver in football. So, to echo what you said, to get Justin Jefferson, such a big need for that football team, and then to get him at, what was that, pick 22, that is damn special to me.
You mentioned the Saints, and I'm going to the Saints at number 4, what they did at 24. Cesar Ruiz, the number 1 interior offensive lineman in this class. We'll see if they play him at center or guard, but I think about it this way. I mean, Drew Brees is going to play 1, maybe 2 more years. You can say what you want about is he as good as he was 3 or 4 years ago. His presence there still gives them a chance to be a 12, 13, 14 win team.
Definitely.
And what's one of the things he's really, really good at? Senses pressure from the outside and steps up. So if you're thinking as a defensive coordinator and you want to get after him, maybe you bring that pressure from up the middle. Make the middle of your offensive line better. You've strengthened the part of your team that gives you reason to think you can play in late January anyway. So that's my 4th favorite one.
No doubt. A little bit of what you just said with the 49ers, right? I mean, they addressed their strength of their team and kept it strong to where it's like it's a force to be reckoned with on a weekly basis. The Saints offensive line is one of the 5 best offensive lines in football. I mean, they got a big-time tackle in Teron Armstead. Ryan Ramczyk is in the conversation for best right tackle in football with Lane Johnson. They got good guard play with Andrus Peat. And now you got a center or a guard, like you're saying, with Ruiz. That's impressive. And Sean Payton likes to run the football. We can't forget that.
Right.
2 years ago, they were one of the 5 best running teams in the sport. So I'm with you, man. there's something to be said about having a part of your team that's a game changer. And that's a game changer for the Saints because teams go, damn, what do we do against this great offensive line? They really compromise you in a lot of different ways. So good pick by you. My last one, I'm going with Clydro because that's his nickname. He told me Clydro, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Okay.
And I want to say this, Chris. I want to say this, and I'll let you go because if you say it, it's different if it comes from me. He was your number one running back, and he was the first one off the board. And you said in your mock that he would go to the Chiefs. So 1, 2, you hit them both. Now go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for being my hype man. I appreciate that, Don King. You the man, okay? Yes, I fell in love with the player with what I saw on film. I got to interview him earlier this week. I fell in love with him some more. So I got a man crush on him because of what I see on film. I mean, I see, Barry Sanders, Brian Westbrook type quickness, breaking ankles all over the place. Start, stop, back up to full speed in 3 steps. Unbelievable route runner. Incredible strength and power for his size between the tackles. Yes, to me, again, it's funny. It's the same theme we just talked about with some of these other guys. They have an elite unit on their football team. Kansas City wins games with their offense. Don't try to change all of a sudden and go, oh, we're going to be a defensive team. No, just keep being the Kansas City Chiefs. Put pressure on everybody with your offense and your weapons and this great quarterback. And it really dictates the pace of the game more weeks than not because other teams have to adjust because they go, holy shit, our offense, we got to push the envelope because we got to keep pace with Patrick Mahomes and company. Our defense, we're going to have to do some different things in this game. We have no chance to stop them unless we do a few things that might be out of our comfort zone. And to me, there's greatness in that. So I love the pick by the Chiefs.
And hey, by the way, the only reason I didn't have that as one of my 1, 2, or 3 picks was out of respect to you and the fact that you had him there as your number one and to the Chiefs. So I wanted to leave that space to you. But he's certainly on my honorable mention as well. Yes, my 5th and final favorite pick, I'm going offensive line with the Cleveland Browns. Jedrick Wills, the tackle. And this is for a couple of reasons. You can clearly see the plan that Andrew Berry brought in. They prioritized tackle on both sides. They got Conklin from the Titans. And now with their first-round pick, they use one on Jedrick Wills. So they took care of what they prioritized there in the offseason. I like that. And I got tired last year of bagging on Baker Mayfield. I mean, he wasn't playing well. The team was a disappointment. He wasn't handling himself that well in the postseason press conferences. I would love to see him play well. I think it'd be fun for the league to have Baker Mayfield be a couple notches better than he was last year. So I applaud that pick.
No doubt. And this was an issue. When they played teams with really good defensive lines, again, doesn't always get talked about when we break down quarterbacks. And yeah, Baker Mayfield did not have his best year. It wasn't as good as his rookie year. But there was issues with pass protection throughout the year that did affect his play, and his decision-making at times too. So, yeah, they killed it with that pick. And now you got 2 studs on both edges like you're talking about. They got a top 5 running back. We know about the receivers, good tight ends. I mean, yeah, I'm with you. And I want Cleveland to be good. I want a new fresh look in the NFL, and I like those players. And there's a lot to admire about the Cleveland fan base and all of that. So I'm with you, Paul. That was a great one.
32 picks off the board before we say goodbye here this afternoon. Your top 3 players still on the board could be any position. They could all be at the same position, however you'd like to roll it out.
I think the top 3 players, and, because I wrote about 7 or 8 guys here that I got very similar grades to where I could really put it any way I wanted to. But to me, the 2 safeties that are still on the board would be my top 1 and 2. Antoine Winfield Jr. to me is Earl Thomas, and I just am shocked he didn't go in round 1. I really am. I love his ability, like we've talked about on the podcast already, to play center field, come down, be aggressive in the run game. He's amazing ball skills deep down the field when he is in coverage. So that would be 1. Xavier McKinney would be my number 2 from Alabama. He's more of a nickel/safety type corner, but I just thought his quickness and explosiveness in little short areas, which is expected, out of that strong safety nickel type position and what I think they'll ask him to do, I thought that was special. I thought it popped off the screen. So those would probably be 1, 2. And then my third one, I really think is Kristian Fulton, the corner from LSU. Kristian Fulton, again, I would say if I was Miami or Minnesota, I would have gone Kristian Fulton over the 2 corners they did, because I think Fulton can be a phenomenal in the slot as well. He's strong. He's got great feet. I really thought he reminded me of Chris Harris Jr. in my evaluation. So those would be my top 3. But I don't want us to forget about Zach Bond from Wisconsin, A.J. Epinesa, T. Higgins, Michael Pittman Jr., Cole Kmet, as we know, is so talented. Those are the next group of guys altogether that I look at should have their names called here pretty quickly in round 2.
Throw Chase Claypool into that mix from Notre Dame as well, who will likely go at some point of the second round. Where are you watching tonight? You watching with family? Do you shut everybody out? Watch by yourself? How do you do it?
I like to the wife sits next to me on the couch. She's kind of keeps an eye on the draft and flips through her phone or the computer, and she's looking at clothes and Instagram and everything like that. My little girl sits there and watches her YouTube videos on the couch. She peeks up every now and then. So I'll be doing that tonight. I might pour a drink. I might roll up a big fatty on Friday night too, and then really enjoy the draft all the way. So I'm excited for it. It's been a long week. The draft process, as you know, it can be grueling. And I finally made it to where I could just sit back and enjoy. So it was fun to watch last night, and I look forward to tonight.
And on Saturday mornings, you don't have to wake up and talk with Florio, so that the sleep-in factor can affect your decisions tonight as well.
Exactly right. I don't got anything to worry about tomorrow morning. No getting up at 5:30 in the morning, and more importantly, don't got to deal with that jerk Florio at 7 a.m. So that'll be a very relaxing morning. I'm ready for it.
You can call him if you'd like. I'm sure he'd be in a chatty mood at that time.
No, thanks. I got enough of him. That's we don't need to. But, Paulie, you're the man, dude. I appreciate everything you do, man. It's a great job. Great questions. Paul, you got a great feel for the NFL. I think we had a good conversation today. And next week, we'll be back. Going to do a draft recap on Monday. We're going to hit it all. What went on, what went down, what teams won the draft, what teams were, disappointing. And we'll break down all things that are going on in the NFL right here on Chris Sims Unbuttoned. Peace out. Paulie, you the man.
Have a good weekend.
You too, buddy. See you, man.
Yo, what's up? Come on, man. Subscribe on YouTube to Chris Sims Unbuttoned Podcast. I need you. Please hit the subscribe button, please.